Sometimes they come back, to quote Stephen King. This is the new Elektron Tonverk. And you might have noticed that a few years ago, this exact box was stolen and leaked online. Elektron didn't really address that. They played really cool. But actually, what somebody stole was just the chassis of this new instrument that they were working already on. So this has been a lot of years in the making. It's a sampling machine. It's the first time that Elektron released a polyphonic sampler and a multisampler, but it's way much more than that. It has incredible routing possibilities, gives you 8 audio track, 4 buses, 3 send track and 1 mix tracks, and you can move your audio signal in between all of these spaces, and you have tons of new effects. I counted 17, I'm not sure about the exact number. You can of course p-lock and sequence every single tracks. There's some new features, some new ideas like the Subtracks, and we will try to go through everything. Now, I had this machine for just a couple of days. It's really deep. And what I think, it's one of those pieces of equipment that will grow with the audience. I'm sure that a lot of people will use the Tonverk in ways that Elektron didn't even think about it. So they use and abuse. They send me this without any string attached. They say, we would just like you to have it. Of course, I jump on the possibility to do the demo right away. But for sure I will be covering more features in the upcoming videos. I'm a bit weary on doing demos on release days, but for Elektron I would do anything. I am doing electronic music thanks to, of course, artists that I love, but also Elektron. The first box I've ever bought was the machine drum when it came out, and since that moment I love what this company do. To me, the most cutting edge, interesting, forward-thinking company around. So I owe Elektron a lot. That said, if you want to support me because you like what I'm doing, please hit the like button, subscribe to this channel and share the content. Then you can buy from the affiliate link down below. You spend exactly the same amount of money, but I get a tiny percentage, so it's a win-win situation. And finally, you can become a Patreon. My Patreon is growing. There's a lot of cool people there. There's tons of exclusive content. I reply to all of your questions. And yeah, I hope to see you there. Okay, let's do a quick overview of the Tonverk, and then later on I will show you how it sounds. What is Tonverk? Tonverk is a sampling machine. It's a sampler at its core. It offers you 8 audio tracks, 4 buses, 3 send tracks and 1 mix tracks. Of all these tracks, 12 can be devoted to MIDI machine, so you can use with external instrument. Today I hooked up the Verbos electronic Sawtooth Stach. Similar to other Elektron boxes, each track can load a different machine. So you have the single player, which is a polyphonic, 8-voice polyphonic sampler. We have a multiplayer, which is a multi-sampling unit. What is a multisample? Multisample is a way to translate your instrument with a lot of more definition. This machine automatically will create multisample, means that you will play an instrument you hook in different velocity, in different octave, to build a package of samples that will give you a better resolution of that precise instrument. At this moment, I don't know if you can load other multi-sample from other companies, but we will see. Then you have Subtracks. This is a new concept and it's very, very cool. So I said you have 8 tracks, but you can use any of these tracks as subtracks. When you do that, this keyboard here, this 8 keys here will be loaded with different samples. Think of it like a kit. And of course, it's great for drumming. So in the end, this could be 8 by 8 tracks, so 64 tracks, if you want to use everything as Subtracks. Finally, the MIDI machine. Now, one important thing, one important key concept of the Tonverk is the routing. In this page, you can route all of your track in different ways. So by default, all the tracks 1 through 8 go to the mix AB. You have 3 sets of output, AB, CD, and the headphones that can also use as out EF. But you can also redirect any of the track to the buses. So the buses thing, if you know mixing, you can see it as sort of groups. You can send a bunch of track there and then apply there some processing. You can also route external audio. You have a set of input here, A and B, but also you can stream from USB. So you can use the machine as a sound processor for your external instruments. You have 2 USB ports. The machine is powered through USB, but right now I have this other cable powering these. Oh, what is this? I'll get back later to that, but this is the new OXI E16. So they let me leak it today. It's another premiere because I think it works perfectly with the Tonverk, and I'll tell you in a bit why. Now you might ask, why this crazy amount of routing? That's because Elektron added tons of new effects. I count 17 effects. And what you can do with this effect, you can load 2 insert effects per track that is exclusive of the track you're using. When you use a Subtracks, they all share the 2 effects that you select here. This is the list. Then each bus can have 2 effects, and you have 3 send effects track, which can load 1 effect each, and finally a mix track that can load another effect. So as you can understand, you can route your audio signal to a lot of things, and you can create crazy effects chain. I think this machine, it's really meant to be one box wonder, where you prepare, you compose your music, and then you have all the tools necessary to also process the audio. Then think that all of these tracks, the buses, the send, the mix, have their own sequencer, so you can sequence the effects, you can sequence gain, volume, staging, a lot of stuff. This makes this machine as complicated and as experimental you want. So somehow they went in a certain direction that the Octatrack was covering. Maybe it has a little bit less of performative power because it's a bit smaller, it's convenient with this key, but of course you might have noticed it doesn't have that beautiful slider, and that's why I hooked up an external controller. Now there's plenty, you can use with any controller you want. This one has a few interesting new ideas, like the snapshot, which is basically OXI version of scenes, grouping, where you can group different knobs and then move them all together. And we will see how it works. Of course, I mapped this to the send effects. In that way, this opens up a lot of possibility for performative actions. The machine is a sample-based machine. Luckily, they put an SD card in the back. You can connect it through USB to the computer and so move files very easily, or just use the SD card. Everything is stored in the SD card. The limit of the sample you can play is just limited by your SD card, so it plays basically everything. You just drag and drop, create your folder. It's super easy, super convenient, and how it was on the Octatrack, and you don't need to use transfer anymore. And this is really, really good. I won't talk about the sequencer because it's the Elektron sequencer. We all know that. It's great. It offers you a lot of interesting possibilities. There's few new things that I like. For example, there is this transform page where you can modify the velocity, you can modify the placement, and we will see it soon, that now you have the possibility of having 16 pages of sequences, which is huge. 256 step long. Of course, if you modify the division, the scale, you can make sequences that last minutes. And I feel this again where this machine want to go. It's not just a loop, small, short pattern machine, but want to be something that covers more space. So let's go now through the track structure. You load the track by pressing track and any of the 8 audio track or the buses, sends or mix. I pick track 7. I loaded a sample that I created with the Sawtooth stack. Here it is. And so we go through it. On source, you select your machine and then you have, for in this case I'm using the single player, you have your waveform where you can set the end, the loop, all the classic things. So this is similar to what we see in the Digitact. Then you have your page filter where you have 2 different filters. One is the Elektron multimode, so it can be low pass, and then move to band pass, and then move to high pass. And then on page 2, you have another high pass and low pass filter. Then you have your amp page where you find another drive and your amp ADSR. FX page. On FX page you have the 3 send that send your track to the send tracks. Now I have a chorus, a delay and a reverb. And this is the classic send that all the other Elektron machines usually had. And then 2 more pages where you can put your insert effects. I'll do later on a quick rundown of all the effects, but you can pick anything, like for example, grab the degrader. And this is one. You can add a second one. So after the degrader, let's put a reverb, for example. Actually, a phaser. And finally, you have a modulation page. Here you have none less than 5 pages. So you have 2 LFO that you can direct in any of the voice setting. Then you have a mod envelope, and then 2 LFO dedicated solely for the effects. So 5 modulation sources for each track. Now let's check the bass track. So let's select that. What's happened here? Simply you have not a lot you can do in these pages except the trig, but then on FX page you can send the bass to the send track and you can load 2 other effects. So for example, in this bass we can put a comb filter. So let's put a comb filter. Now let's pick back our track before. If you move from any of the audio track to a bass track or a send or mix, you will be still able to play the previous track, which is really convenient. So you can here. But now we want to send this track to this bass track. So you go in routing. Here you pick the track you're playing. So it's 7. And I send 7 to bass 1. So now, here it is. And all of this is obviously sequenceable. So I will put a chord down. Let's make the length. And now we can go on the bass track. And start sequencing our effects. So we can decide in this case to put down normal tricks, but now you also have the sequence lane, so you can just select P-lock, you can put down P-locks and now work on different. And you can do this for each of the buses, for the send, so you can create really, really intense modulation. Let's now check the sends. So let's select Sense. Here you have again your list of effects. In this case, there's panoramic color. Let's use one new one, the Ramsklang Reverb. So we select that. Now we pick back our track 7, and let's clear out all the effects. So here it is. And now we can decide to send it to the reverb here. Not only that, we are sending this track to the bus, so we can also say, okay, let's go on the bus track and send the bus track to the same reverb. So both of them go to the send 13. Again, everything is modulable and p-lockable. Finally, on the last track, track 16, you have a mix effects. So even here you can load any of the things. Now let's see how simple it is to create a sample on the machine. I set track 8 to be a MIDI track and activate channel number 1, which is the Sawtooth stack. So now I can play it. Obviously now it's monophonic because this is a monophonic synth, so I can go in sample. So now this is the same kind of sampler recorder that is in other machine. I can set up the length, the threshold. So now I set a threshold. I record one note. Let's do a higher pitch, so then we can tune down and have more grit. So here you can create whatever sound you want. Let's use this one. So let's arm. Done. Now you can save it. Now you can assign it to a track. Let's assign it to track 6. And now I go on track 6. Here it is. And now I can play my sample. And now I have a polyphonic Sawtooth stack, which is great. Super cool. And this is the regular sampling. Then you have the multisampling. So let's say you want to record automatically a multi-sample pack where you can play the same instrument, and instead of just having one layer of velocity, this one, for example, react to velocity like this, at lower velocity sounds like this, and then the more you play velocity, the more it opens up the timbre. So what you do, how you do that? You go in sample again, you go here, you set the auto sampler. Now you have to do a few setups. A move. First, you do a test, press yes. It will play the machine connected via MIDI. It will set automatically the latency, the release time, so basing how long the note is gonna be. So if I put a long decay, let's listen again. Now it's almost a second long. So let's do something short. Let's press yes. Once this is done, you press this. Now you set the range. So you tell how many notes you will be picking per octave. The more you put, the more you will have a high resolution sample pack. In this case, we want to do something fast because you can select how many notes per octave and also how many layers of velocity. So we can set a pick 3 samples every octave and 2 layers of velocity. And then you decide the range of the octaves. This is gonna be 10 samples. When everything is ready, you press that, and then you start recording. As you can see, you see the progress of that. If you do long thing, I did some multi-sample that take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, so you just have a coffee. As you can hear, there was a different velocity layer, so it sounded different. Save automatically, giving a weird name. Now it's chuckling trimester, so yes. Now we load it. So we go on track 2, we go on source, multiplayer, the multi-sample. And this works nice because if we use a different velocity, it automatically moves between the different layers of velocity we record. The more you add, the more complex you create your multisample, the better it will sound. On the multiplayer page, source page, by now you can only work with the tune and add a vibrato. Let's talk a bit about the subtracks. When you press subtract, you have the chance to play with the packs that are already there. You can create your own. Each of these kits have 8 sound. You press yes. Now when you select any of the sound, you can press track if you don't want to trigger the sample. You have a independent sequencer. So let's say we want to put down some kick. The subtracks have a super track that can control them all, and they share the effects, but then the filter, it's per sound. So for now, for example, in this hat, so I can use a bandpass, some overdrive, and then here you can send. So the effects page is global, but the modulation page is not. So you have 5 modulation sources per subtrack. The sky's the limit here, because with 64 potential tracks, there's a lot of you can do. You cannot play this sample chromatically. So what you can do, you can pillock the tuning here if you want. Now, there's one thing that I like to use with the subtrack, that is the transform page. So let's go back to track 1. Let's use this sound. So let's put down a full hat. If you press transform, let me actually also clean up that. If you open the transform page, you see there's velocity transform and placement transform. So first thing is velocity randomize. So let's play, and now let's randomize, which is already great. Then you have ramp up and ramp down. This is made the velocity go up, which is great, and it's fun because then you remove some of the trigs and you have very fast something more organic. Then, if you have a pattern like this, you can go in placement reverse. That will flip the placement of the tricks, or randomize. So it will use the same amount of tricks, but replaced in the length of the pattern. Super, super nice. So what are the performative possibilities of the Tonverk? Right now, and I'm sure more will come in the future, you have this perform page. When you turn it on, everything you do is gonna be non-destructive. So you can change your whatever, and then go back to the previous state. You have also a recall and memorize, which is similar. So you memorize the pattern and then you can recall it at any time. And then you have your redo and undo, similar to what you find in other Elektron boxes. The things that I feel it's really cool to use with the Tonverk is an external controller. And this leads me to the intermission. Okay, so let's take care of this little thing here. We've been working on this for a while, and I thought this is the perfect time to use it with something. This is the new OXI E16. This is still a prototype. We are still finishing it. It's a 16 knob MIDI controller, but he has tons of scene and pages. It's super, super powerful. It also plays a script, and I'll do some video about that soon, but today I want to just show you how it shines with something like this. Some MIDI are not implemented yet, so I cannot control the buses, the send, and the volume. So right now I set these to control the send of the first 4 tracks. So for example here, I can send the reverb, the delay, and the other reverb for the first track. These allow you to have a nice performative way to play with the Tonverk. Obviously, this is a machine that relies heavily on routing, sending, and effects, so a controller will make it really shine. Now, what is very cool about the 16 is that we have grouping. So with just pressing one button, I can group different knobs. And now if I move this one, I can automate all the 4 send in one knob, and these other 2. And then we have this cool thing called snapshot, where I can save a snapshot of the page. For example, now I want this page clean, and now I will create something. So let's say this is where I want to go. I save on Capture B, and now I can morph between the 2 settings. So, what is really missing that I would have loved to see in this machine is the slider of the octatrack. That is something that is octatrack only, and we love it. But when we were building the E16, we were thinking, wow, how we can create scenes in a fast and simple way. And this is our take on that. So now I have the scene A on your octatrack, and now you can go to scene B. And it's super simple to modify because you can always go in different direction, then save it and go back to where it was before. Well, stay tuned because I'm gonna talk about this little fella a lot soon. End of intermission. There's another interesting thing that I really like, which is the transition. Here you can set how you transition between patterns. So you have the classic sequential one that will wait until the pattern is over. You have the direct jump, the direct start, and temporary jump, which I really like. So for example, let's say we have this. I can jump to any other track that hopefully is in the same BPM, play it for the remainder of the sequence, and then go back. And then I can move to that. It's really cool to create glitchy transition or weird stuff. So as a final step, let's go through all the different effects really quickly. That will take ages, but let's just listen to them. We use the Sawtooth Stach sample we did. So let's go here and let's start loading them. Chrono pitch. It's a modulator that also tune. Really cool. Let's move now to the comb filter. This sounds really cool. Now, compressor is the classic, we don't need to go there. Degrader is one of my favorites. It's a collection of a bunch of weird stuff. So you have overdrive, bit reduction, sample rate redux. Then you have the drop, that actually drop your sound, like there's some weird artifact happening. And then you have the freeze, that create this glitchy repetition. This is really cool. You can randomize the time. This is one of my favorites. Okay, then we have the dirt shaper, which is an overdrive machine. You have distortion, drive, rectify. high pass and low pass, and a noise which can be filtered. Very cool. Filter bank is an 8-band filter bank, all P-lockable, so even here you can create a nice, cool EQ of your instrument. Then infinite flanger. Very cool. Low pass filter, which, guess what, is a low pass filter. Panoramic chorus, which is, this was also on the analog git, which is a stereo chorus. Then we have the Phase 98, which is a cool phaser. Very spacious. Finally, a saturator delay. Which is a ping-pong delay with some dirt. Now, some effects are based only on the send, so we can actually remove these, bypass. And now let's go in the send. One cool things that we can do, if you are on an audio track and then you go on a bass or send effects, you can still be able to play the previous track. So let's select, here we have the Rumsklang reverb, so let's listen to that. We need to go back on our track 6 and activate this. And now we can go here. I really like this one. It goes from very small space to very big one. Beautiful. Oof. Then what we miss, the super void reverb, which is the classic reverb of Elektron, at least in the function here. Nice. And then the daisy delay, which is a delay that allows you to play with the stereo field. I wish they had also a delay that when you change time doesn't have the tape deformation, so you can skip and do glitchy stuff. This sounds really good. And then there's one last effect that is on the mix, so let's deactivate this one, track 7, no, track 6. And now we go on the mix, and in the mix there was a compressor, but we can use the warble, which is your cassette emulator. This leads me to the conclusion. Who is this machine for? I believe Elektron is aiming to electronic musicians that like IDM, ambient, experimental. This is a sort of modular machine as the Octatrack was. There's a lot of routing, a lot of effects, a lot of possibility, and I think it will grow with time. I'm sure there's space to add more stuff, to refine things, to have interesting routing, and I'm super excited actually to see how people will use it, because that's where magic will happen. I'm sure there's gonna be tons of use cases that are unbelievably good. Stay tuned for more, and also to know more about this little guy, and I'll see you next week. Ciao. So let's go through the patches that I created. So the first one we hear so far is a very simple 4 tracks. There's 2 subtracks, 2 multisample, and on track 6 I recorded another version of the Sawtooth Stach to play beautiful pads. There's a lot of automation here and there, very subtle things that keep the simple 1-bar pattern keep evolving. And this is you do with all the sequencers that you can use in the buses, in the send, and in the mix. Let's load the second one. This is more of a IDM drum patch. Again, here I have stuff, let's see, on the master. I have the degrader, which is a very cool bunch of degrading effects. So I p-lock all the different sections. So I have freeze, I have bit reduction, and this creates an evolving pattern. With the external controller, I can send to the send tracks. Very simple. This is stuff that I wouldn't be able to do to any other machine. So I rely a lot on the use of effects. For example, sure, you can do that with the Digitact, but you don't have the routing possibilities and the sequencing and modulation possibility that this machine has. Let's load another pattern. This is another patch I built through the use of the Sawtooth Stach with a long sample, very simple. Obviously, you can hook up a keyboard, and that would make even things better because you have velocity sensitive. And it's kind of fun for the first time ever to be able to play polyphonically on Elektron sampler. Now, I find myself really enjoying the way you can create rhythm and make them organic with this machine. So I did a lot of these grainy, glitchy patches. So one way you can perform with this, it's like setting up all of the possible routing and then control them. And maybe you have a bunch of patterns and then you play with the effects, which is my favorite thing. Think of it as a first composition tool in studio and then is a mixing board that allows you to get crazy results. Again, these are all pads created from a monophonic sample. You can see that even in this case, I have stuff. In this case, I have the reverb that come and go here. Obviously, you can create a master page with 16 pages, a master effect with 16 pages, and have a variation that keep coming in and out in a very long span of time. This is something that I created again with the Sawtooth. It led me to build something that sound a bit like this, but then I added the filter with some envelope. For this one I used the arpeggiator. We didn't touch on that. Of course you have an arpeggiator page, which is a similar arpeggiator you find in other machines, which is really good. This moment doesn't snap to scale, but I'm sure it will be. You have a chord page where you can, if we deactivate the arpeggiator, you can create your chord shape and then sequence them. You have a song mode, of course, and here is where you set your scale, and then you can turn on the scale here on or off. At the moment, it's not working like the digiboxes where you rotate and when you put down trigs is snap to scale, but they promise that will come soon. And finally, the last patch. Again, I am sequencing a low-pass filter on the mixer. So these create variation. At any time, you have your mute page where you can mute tracks, but also you can mute the automation of the track. So for example, now I have this coming in, but I can bring that effects I was doing with the mix track, which is just a filter that come and go.